At time with Jordan. Is this mic on? The mic is live. Alright, we are ready to go. Footy talk. Alright. On the radio, let's talk footy. Yes, this is AI. Keen to get started. Pump those ratings up high. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Alrighty guys, welcome back to another episode of Airtime with Jordan. I'm your host, Jordan Fasso. We're getting straight into it today. We've got Port Adelaide season preview and going to start off with the review of their season last year. Just go through that and then we'll go through the ins and outs of the offseason, get into some expectations I have for the Power this year, some players to watch for them, and then give my ladder projection and just power ranking as well for where I see Port heading into the year. And I think they had a pretty good year last year. Obviously went 16 wins, 7 losses, finished second on the ladder in the end, and I think it was just all in all a really good year from Port Adelaide. I had them as one of my top enders and one of the contenders with them with Sydney for most of the year, and I think they just sort of ran out of gas against the Swans in that prelim final in the end, and I think that unfortunately for them, they sort of fell a bit short, but I think that Jace Burgoyne really cemented himself last year. I thought he had a great season on the wing. Jordan Sweet claimed the number 1 ruck spot, which hopefully sort of can translate into more consistency in the middle of the field for the mids to work off. And if it wasn't for a Dan Houston bump, they may have been bound for the grand final too. I think he was a massive loss, not only for them in the finals last year, but for this coming season too. And I think that overall, they probably weren't, sort of knocking on the door again, Port Adelaide, but just weren't able to do it when it really mattered. And I think that they have a good home ground advantage over at Adelaide Oval, and hopefully that they can sort of take it a couple of steps further this year for their sake. And still a really talented list on all fronts. They worked in some players nicely, like the Savarada Galea played a good role last year. I thought he's probably not the best key backman in the league, but having him in the team as just a big body really helped them. I thought being able to pull a lever and put him up forward as well at times was good when Charlie Dixon especially sort of was pretty apparent that he was coming to the end of his career. So I think they found some good things last year. Keen to see how they go this year. And with that being said, let's get into their ins and outs of the season. And Rory Atkins came in, Benny Barrett, Joe Berry, Tom Cochran, Josh Lay, Jack Lukosius, Christian Moraes, Jacob Moss, Joe Richards, and Jack Whitlock as well. So, a few guys coming in. I love the Joe Richards pickup. I think he fits their forward structure really well and could be an underrated pickup of the off-season. And, I think interesting one where him and Dan Houston are both playing their opposite teams in round 1. So, keep an eye on that little beefy matchup there. But on the outside, we have Tom Cleary, Charlie Dixon, of course, who retired, and then Frankie Evans, Dan Houston, Kyle Marshall, Tom McCallum, Trent McKenzie, Quinton Narkle, and Tom Scully. So, Tom Scully the second, that is. I think overall, pretty decent group of guys coming into the team. A few question marks over those guys, though, like Rory Atkins. I won't know how much he has left. Jack Lukosius is shown talent at times, but let's see where he sort of falls in the pecking order at Port Adelaide, and if he can sort of cement himself as a key forward. And on the out, Charlie Dixon, as I said, was pretty much done. I think it was his body unfortunately sort of abandoned him a little bit in the end. And Trent McKenzie as well has been a great player, great pickup for them for a while, and I think that he'll be missed, especially his kicking ability. And then Dan Houston is the big one, the big out, and unfortunately for him, he is irreplaceable, I think. So that's gonna hurt them a little bit, but I think they should still have pretty good expectations coming into the year. And getting into that part, I think they're absolutely going to be competitive. I think that they're as I said, losing Houston is absolutely massive for mine. They have some great defenders overall, but I see them more as like a group of one-on-one stoppers, which doesn't necessarily translate to the absolute best defense in my mind. You need interceptors, stoppers, and rebounders these days to be, that sort of complete defense. And I think that like, although they have some guys who can play those roles individually or in isolation, I don't think that there is a lot of interchangeability in terms of the defensive profile they have back there. And I think that Dan Houston really sort of was the glue in that regard. I think he brought the group together and had a few of those skills where he was a great defensive one-on-one. He was amazing in intercepting, and his ability to kick by foot and rebound the ball and set Port Adelaide up from the back half was, as I said, just really irreplaceable. And I think that they have guys who are capable in those regards. I think Miles Bergman especially is going to have to try and fill that void left by Houston. I think he's ready. I think that he's obviously not going to do it at the same level straight away, but he has the potential to. And especially the intercepting part, I really love Miles Bergman's ability to intercept as that sort of medium sized backman. And I think the kicking ability that they have down back now is a little bit suspect. I think if they're going to play. Obviously Kane Farrell has the ability to do that, and I think that they can really hide his lack of size down there with the general overall size they have. They've got Lockie Jones, Aliir, Asaba Radagalier if he plays down there as well. So I think they've managed to hide Kane Farrell over the last few years, but I think that the emphasis on his ability to create from the back half is going to be even greater this year with the absence of Dan Houston. So that's going to be interesting to see if teams are able to shut them down a bit easier by just keying in on Kane Farrell a bit. And I think that they have the size to compete with most forward lines one-on-one. I spoke about Aliir, Asaba, Jeremy Finlayson apparently has been playing back there as well. So they have a lot of size and stuff, and Lockie Jones too is a great one-on-one defender, but the lack of skills in that group for me. Finlayson's a good kick at times. I think that his decision making can be a bit erratic though, is the only thing. And I think that I don't know. I just don't trust their ability to intercept the ball as well. I think that overall I'm a bit concerned about the back half. I think that they're solid. I don't think they're going to be anywhere near the worst in the competition, but I just think what they lost in Dan Houston really just sort of brought everything together for them, and it's going to be interesting to see who steps up. And I imagine it's Miles Bergman who does step up in that regard. But that's going to be a sort of part of the ground that I'm I don't think it's going to be necessarily horrible, but by any means. But I'm just a little concerned about the loss of Houston down there. And I think in general they're just going to rely a bit too much on their mids. I think that we saw that with Sydney as well, where they're relying on their mids to do a lot for you to cover, not necessarily defend, but especially to be able to move the ball from their back half. I think that they're going to need their mids a lot this year to do so, with the lack of good kickers from the back half. I think obviously Kane Farrell I spoke about, but who else is going to do it for them? I think that Ryan Burton, his decision making can be suspect at times as well. So I don't know if you're relying on just Kane Farrell and Miles Bergman to do that sort of repelling for you, but that's why I think that the mids are going to have to be relied on to do that as well, to transition their game from the back out of the back line this year. And when you combine that idea, which I think they might be hamstrung to a little bit with the already heavy load that the midfielders have on generating a winning score, with their overall sort of lack of firepower up forward, it seems like a bit unsustainable for me looking at this team from the outside in. And this is obviously comparing them to the bar that I'm setting for Port Adelaide is they're trying to win a premiership, right? So that's the. I'm not saying that they're the worst in the league at this. I'm just saying, in comparison to some of the best teams, I think that the amount of load that they're going to put on their midfielders might be asking a little bit too much compared to other teams who might spread the load a bit more than they do, especially the scoring aspect of it. I think Willie Rioli was really their only reliable source of scoring up forward for mine last year. I think. At times I think that Mitch Georgiades provides that, but I don't think he does it consistently enough for you to classify him as in the same sort of category as Willie Rioli, who was just really good last year, I thought. And they sort of played him as that pseudo power forward at times, and I think that worked to pretty well for them at times. And putting him one out in the square is a really hard matchup. But again, that having that as your relying on that as your main forward probably isn't going to get you through a full season. I think it can help you in the finals, and especially where the pressure's up and defenders might be feeling it a bit more. But I think that they need to find a bit more of a reliable source of scoring the ball outside of Willie Rioli and getting Jason Horne-Francis or Rosie or Butters to kick some goals for them. So I think that They've obviously tried to bring in some guys to help in that regard. Jack Lukosius and Joe Richards are the two, I guess, that you can point to where they've said, let's bring in some forwards here and help spread the load a bit. But in isolation, I think those guys, I like bringing those guys to bring in, but they're the sort of players that would work, I think, better if they had the Charlie Dixon and his prime still around at the absolute peak of his powers, because, Mitch Georgiades and Todd Marshall can be pretty inconsistent at times, and are the type to, are they the type to draw help from other defenders, which their smalls would ideally feast on. And I think that I think you need that big focal point for Port Adelaide, and I don't think that Jack Lukosius is necessarily that. I don't think Mitch Georgiades is that, or Todd Marshall, but maybe there's an idea that the three of them can all work together and sort of spread the load in that way, and then bring their small forwards like Will Rioli and now Joe Richards into the game a bit more, and Sam Powell-Pepper too if he's going to play up there. So I think that overall that lack of a true focal point makes it hard to see how they're going to score enough without their mids going absolutely bonkers for mine. And I think there's definitely a chance it works. I just don't necessarily see the theory here working necessarily. As I said, if they had prime Charlie Dixon or someone like that, I would be much higher on this forward line. I think then bringing in Jack Lukosius makes a lot more sense, but hoping that he's going to be, the full forward of the future for them is hoping a little bit too much. He's never really shown that at Gold Coast. I think he's, I'll talk a bit more about Jack Lukosius in a minute, actually, and my general thoughts on that, but I have to acknowledge the potential that they could make me look really silly, because, they do have one of the most talented midfield groups in the competition, and can get better again this year. And I think in general, though, I will be lower on them than the consensus this year. As I said, the mids have the potential to be one of the best groups in the competition, but I don't think we've ever seen all three of Rosie, Butters and Jason Horne-Francis be at their best all at the same time. I think it's always been like, Rosie's having a down year, or like Butters is unfit, isn't fit or something, he's carrying something, and Jason Horne-Francis has shown like he can probably be the best of that group, but hasn't put it all together throughout a whole season yet. And there of course are the injury concerns as well, primarily Butters, who's going to miss the start of the year already as well. So we know that Rosie had a pretty injury-riddled season last year. I think he played a fair few games, but he was always sort of carrying something that I feel like held him back a bit. And if Jason Horne-Francis is able to break out, it can definitely take this midfield to another level, though. And he's proven that at his best, he's one of the more challenging mids to stop in the league for sure. That blend of being able to put him up forward and isolate him as a small forward or medium forward, I guess. He's pretty big. He has that Nathan Buckley, Patrick Dangerfield drive around the ground and at the stoppages and in the packs. Plus, as I said, his ability to hit the scoreboard is really dangerous for Port Adelaide. And as good as Butters and Rosie are, I think he's probably the most talented out of the three. And I think that he could break some games apart where they have no business winning. And I think that just that general upside, I think that. Yeah, that's sort of the potential that I'm talking about, where they can definitely make me look silly if Jason Horne-Francis is able to take his game to another level and be like, I'm absolutely one of the best top 10 midfielders, top 5 midfielders in the league, which I think he has that upside. Then this starts to look a little bit different for me, and I could be a bit wrong on where I think Port Adelaide are going to end up in that regard. And then the players to watch for me. I'm going to go through Joe Richards to start. I think he showed some really nice signs at Collingwood last year. He's played in front of a lot of big crowds, played pretty well in those games, and just has this like goal sense and is really clean with the ball. And I'm keen to see how he goes up forward for them. I'm pretty keen to see his year. I think that he, at Port Adelaide might have been a little bit underwhelmed with the return of. That they got for Dan Houston, but I think that they might be pleasantly surprised with what Joe Richards provides them this year. I think he's, was an underrated player at Collingwood, overlooked at times due to the amount of guys that they have and the hype that that fan base sort of generates. But I think that Joe Richards definitely has a chance to surprise some people this year. And said I'd touch on Jack Lukosius, and he's absolutely the one to watch for me. I think absolutely worth the roll of the dice for a team in need of a key forward. I worry that they don't really have enough support around him though, up forward, in terms of like, are they just trying to make him the great white hope, and this guy might actually just be Jack Watts 2.0, where he isn't actually a key forward, but he's a tall half forward miscast as a key forward. And I think that they already have that sort of problem with a little bit with Todd Marshall and Mitch Georgiades, which I talked about. So adding another one to the mix who's shown a bit of promise but hasn't really put it all together might be a little bit of fool's gold, I think, especially with depending how much they've offered him contract wise. And I think there might be a little bit much pressure on him coming into the year. I think hopefully he can show why he was such a highly rated youngster now that he is back in Adelaide. But I think I'm a little bit players to watch for probably not a good reason. I think that this has the potential to be a little bit of a Jack Watts 2.0 situation, who to his credit actually played quite well at Port Adelaide at times, but just like that, he just hasn't put it all together. Lukosius, I feel like he's a man without a position, and maybe he ends up playing in the back line at the end of the year. I think I've actually liked him down back when he's behind the ball a bit more rather than playing up forward. So I think maybe that's a switch you might. You know what? Actually, now that I'm talking, this is me just talking through it live. I actually wouldn't mind them putting Asava Radaglia up forward, be that big pack breaking guy. Put Lukosius down back as the interceptor, and he's the guy that they're missing down back. He has good skills. He can mark the ball. He reads the game pretty well from in behind the ball. So actually, I'm talking myself into that. I think if I was Ken Hinkley, I'd be putting him back and putting Asava up forward and just letting Asava just crash packs with some of the smaller guys they have up there. So anyway, let's see if they make that move in the season, because that's something that I would definitely be keeping keen on for just a schematic standpoint. And I'll get straight into the ladder projections for me, and I think that I've got them ranked 8th coming into the year in my power rankings. I think that, as I said, there's a chance that they do much better than that, but I think that the loss of Dan Houston is going to hurt them quite a bit, I think, across the length of the full season. And after going through the fixtures as well, they've dropped a couple spots in my power rankings after I went through their draw, and it's not the kindest draw, I don't think. So I've actually put them 10th on the ladder to finish up the year. So I'm keen to keep an eye on Port Adelaide, because as I said, they've got the potential to absolutely exceed those expectations. But at the same time, I am a bit concerned about their back half with Dan Houston leaving, especially. So that's where I'll leave it for today, and thanks for listening, guys, and stay tuned for the next season preview. I think it'll be St Kilda next I'll do. So enjoy.